Do you want a business with a 98% profit margin? That sounds amazing. Who wouldn't want as much money as possible that they earn to go into their pocket? This is a common soundbite that gets lauded all over the internet, but that margin might just be a myth and might come with some trade-offs that you're not expecting. So in this video, we're going to break down the fundamentals of business profitability so you're comparing to the right benchmarks and understand if a high margin business like that is actually worth the trade-off. Let's dive in. So when we hear a business talking about their high profit margins, we first have to understand the breakdown of what margin they're talking about and how you can compare that to your business. Let's start with revenue, which is the top of a profit and loss statement. So revenue is the money you make by selling things, which we all want more of that in our pocket. The next line on the P&L statement is the cost of goods sold. This is the direct cost of those sales. So contractors billing directly to billable work for your agency. This is fixed product cost. These are the cost of actually that delivery or the cost of the physical product that you pay for the manufacturer for the materials. So revenue less cost of goods sold is your gross margin. Most service-based businesses that are soloists or that are selling online courses or products, if you're a speaker, mostly your cost of goods sold is probably zero. If you have an agency, it's probably 20 to 30% margin from a cost of goods sold. So it's just 70% gross margin. So man, 100% gross margin, that's amazing. We'll continue now down the P&L. Looking at our operating expenses. Operating expenses are the other cost of running your business. There are generally three components to operating costs. So we have your operational cost, like software, like email, accounting services, tax prep, legal, hosting the course, having graphic design done. These are all of the operational expenses you need to run your business. Another one that's not insubstantial is merchant fees. So if you're paying Stripe or you're paying Lemon Squeezy or Gumroad with a 2.9% service charge, that is an operational cost of running your business. The next major cost is your team cost. This is not what you can bill directly to clients, but this is the cost of the team members that help you run your business. This is a virtual assistant. This is an online business manager. This is a community manager. This is your product manager or customer service team. This also includes any non-billable time for your team members that are potentially delivering services. So if they are billing out 70% of their time to clients, that would be cost of goods sold, but the remaining 30% of what you pay them would be considered an indirect expense as part of your team. This also includes the owner's base salary if the business is an S Corp. So when you start putting yourself on payroll and paying payroll tax, that is part of the team cost of the business. And then finally, we have our marketing costs. This is both the direct spend on ads, sponsorships, paid recommendations, or the indirect cost of the agencies or team members that we have preparing our marketing assets. This is the cost of hiring a YouTube production agency. This is the cost of hiring a social media agency. This is the cost of a PR agency. The fourth part of the operating expenses is something that is more optional, so we didn't necessarily talk about it. This is the cost of your personal and professional development that you're charging to the business. So this high-ticket masterminds, these group programs that you're joining to learn skills, dues, memberships, these are all considered professional development expenses that you may choose to have in your business. I know some entrepreneurs who spend almost all of their gross margin on coaching. I would not advise that for you if you'd like to keep some money in your pocket. Some of these expenses that you have, like operational, team, and marketing costs, these could be recurring, like subscription services, or they could be one time. Maybe you pay someone a project fee to set up your project management system. Maybe you do a brand photo shoot. Maybe you need contracts reviewed, and so you are paying a one-time contract fee, which would be part of your operational costs. So again, we can have recurring costs in the business. We can have one-time project costs in the business. That are operational expenses. And that's how we go from gross margin to operating margin or net margin pre-tax. So this is that revenue minus those direct cost of running the business. This is before you pay taxes, so before you pay Uncle Sam, before you pay down any debt, or before you as an owner take an owner draw that's unrelated to your business's salary or your salary on your business payroll. After you've paid your taxes, after you paid your debt, this is net margin. This is the actual post-tax margin for your business. This is where you pull the owner draw from. This is where you put away stuff for bonus or savings or retirement or investment. So when someone's out there talking about how they run their $1 million business on $2,000 a month of software cost, are they simply just including that recurring cost, or are they including these other one-time costs that aren't recurring? Are they including taxes? Because you got to pay the taxes. Are they including the owner salary? Are they including any team salary? They may run their business on their own, but again, that's not straight a 98% take home to your wallet from your top line revenue. When people on these internet streets are bragging about their profit margin, is that their gross margin because they're running a digital business? Is it their operating margin? Or are they actually saying, what am I as the owner taking home after taxes? So we've covered the overall structure of a P&L, but what we haven't covered is the cost of maintaining that 98% margin business. So if someone's talking about how they run their business at a 98% profit margin, you know for sure that there's almost no cost of goods sold. So this has to be something that is a digital product. It is speaking fees, something that is not related to a physical product. So if you've got a business with a physical product component, or you are running an agency model, you're not going to have, 100% gross margin. And so we need to, again, compare. Are we comparing apples to apples related to our business models? Some business models, by their nature, have 20 to 40% cost of goods sold and only start at a 60% gross margin. When we go beyond the cost of goods sold line, we have the hard costs. So you have the non-negotiable cost of running, example, an online digital business. You have email software, you'd have course product hosting fees, you'd have fees for your automation software, you have fees for your website hosting. That's generally going to run you for $1 million business like that, $2,000 a month. You're also paying merchant fees, which is, again, depending on who you use, 2.9% with potentially opportunities for scale. And then let's not forget about those one-time non-negotiable fees you have to pay in order to be compliant with legal, compliant with taxes, and compliant with business insurance. So that generally is a couple of $1,000s a year for errors and omissions insurance and general liability insurance. And your accounting team at that level, you're going to need to have a solid accounting team unless you want to do your own bookkeeping. You need to have a solid tax preparer, and you need to have ironclad bulletproof contracts, not only for what you sell, but for all the revenue you might be making from sponsorships and affiliates. So the hard cost of your business, when you look beyond just the software and the merchant fees, this probably is $60K a year for $1 million business. So, that's 5 or 6% of that margin. So now if you're running a business that big, we got to go to the next level. Are you paying yourself on payroll so that you can avoid some of that self-employment tax? So again, that's technically a business expense by putting yourself on payroll and having your business pay some of your employment taxes. So that could be $100,000 a year on $1 million business, plus the employment expenses for payroll tax, that payroll service, that can run you another $10,000. Then we have taxes, which is generally, depending on where you live, probably about 20% of your operating margin. And so the total cost of running that business could be, if you include your salary, including your taxes, $370,000, which effective net margin, still great, still like 60%, but that's very different from saying that's a 98% margin business. So now let's talk about the costs that you might not expect of running this type of business with that type of margin. So if you're running your business that lean, you are going to be your own assistant. You have admin and team costs. You have to be the one setting up all the automations. You have to be the one answering customer questions. You have to be chasing down churn and failed payments and login questions. Maybe that you want to keep again that money in your pocket, but maybe you say, I'd like to be able to step away from answering immediate customer service requests, and I'm going to hire an administrative team or a customer service team. That comes with a cost. Right now, you're paying that cost with your time, maybe some really great automations, but ultimately, as you scale, do you want to be the ultimate responsible for answering those questions? Maybe not. If you run a community as part of your service, that means managing the community, handling onboarding, managing content, setting up events. You're going to have to do member engagement. Do you want that on your desk, or do you want to bring on a community manager so you can keep doing what you do best, being the brand ambassador, generating content for your brand, and let someone else handle the administrative side? If managing a community is part of what you do, again, you are paying the cost of that person with your time. One other part of administration and team, particularly if you make any money with sponsorships, is sponsorship agencies and people who handle that administrative work for you also charge a fee. Again, do you want to be in-house managing your pitching for sponsorships, managing the coordination for sponsorships, handling all that administration, or do you want to give some of that revenue to an agency? These are administrative and team costs that you can keep that margin in your business, but again, you are on the hook for keeping all those parts of your business running. Is that a cost you're willing to pay? The next unexpected cost might be in marketing. In order to run a $1 million business with that 0% cost of goods sold, which means it's a digital products business most likely, you're going to have to reach hundreds of thousands of new consumers. Because again, we might not be running a community model, which allows for longer term member engagement. So we might have to reach hundreds of thousands of new customers every year, which means that you're going to have substantial organic reach, or you're going to be having to produce a ton of content, or the third is you're going to have to pay for some of it. YouTube and social media agencies run $10,000 to $50,000 per year, and you may need ads or affiliates, which might cost you between 10 to 50% of your top line revenue. Are you one of the rare individuals who can generate hundreds of thousands of eyeballs on your stuff and get 10 to 20,000, 30,000 customers every year? Or do you need to pay a little money for ads? Do you need to pay for affiliates? And maybe would you like some help on managing your marketing through an agency? Again, that comes with a trade-off of being very hyper-focused on social media from a time perspective, or potentially hiring help or using the accelerating nature of paid advertising. Ultimately, we're kind of assuming that this business model means that it just kind of runs in perpetuity, but business investments are going to be required to keep that business operating at that low recurring revenue, but high impact, because business is always changing. To run this type of margin implies that you're not investing in your business infrastructure or your own education and mentorship, which isn't really sustainable to help you get to the next level. So experts, consultants can smooth the path, can implement systems. For example, maybe you're doing a new launch and you need to hire someone to help you with segmentation of your email systems, can help you set up better automations. Maybe you're doing a new relaunch and you want new branding. That's a business investment. Yeah, that's not recurring revenue, but that comes out of your operating expense. And then also mentorships and masterminds to grow your expertise. What don't you know that you want to learn? Now, I would say don't invest all your money in mentorships and masterminds, but would you rather figure it out on your own or shorten the time by years, potentially decades, to make it to the next level of revenue? We don't have to pay these costs if we want to retain the money in our business. We don't have to pay for teams to help us on the administrative side. We don't have to pay for marketing if we can figure out how to crush it organically without a lot of help on video side. And we can try to figure out how to do it ourselves if we don't want to pay for our own education or for experts to help us with those projects that are going to move our infrastructure forward. Ultimately, that is how these high gross margin businesses end up with 10 to 20% net profit after adding in resilience and adding in teams that handle some of the day-to-day, keeping themselves in their zones of genius by delegating administration, marketing, and investing in their own business infrastructure and experience. So when you see these entrepreneurs talking about how cheaply they can run their business and having high margins, one, are you comparing apples to apples in their business models? Because if you have a different business model, we're not talking about the same thing. And two, are these costs that you're willing to pay? So consider that. Thanks for joining us today.